happy day, beautiful people. Today, I want to talk about Samson because that's what I was reading in the Bible yesterday. So I was in Judges and something stood out to me this time. So, we all know about Samson and Delilah, but I don't think that I ever really paid attention to the fact that Samson had a wife before that and his wife was given over to his companion. Um, I don't think I also even like really picked up on the fact that of course we knew Samson had very beautiful hair and that, God was with him. Once Delilah came along and it got cut off, God was no longer with him, right? But I don't think that we really even talked about before that how Samson knew that he was anointed. He knew that he had, you know, he had God with him. He knew that he was a chosen one essentially and that he had a calling that was, higher than most people. Like he had things that he shouldn't have been doing. But yet he continued to rebel against God. And, the most vivid thing that I remembered today was about him eating the honey off of the dead corpse or whatever, or dead animal, I believe it was. Dead bear, yeah. And it's just kind of crazy to me. Well, I don't know if it was a bear, but don't get me to messing that up. But I just thought it was so crazy because then he even went on to take that honey to his parents and gave it to them and didn't even tell them. Like he was just living all kind of messed up, you know what I mean? And willfully living in his sin. And I think that why it stood out to me is because I had just been like having a conversation with some friends or whatever about willfully living in sin. Like I had seen this video and I just started even just going down a deeper dive because there's so many verses in the Bible that tell us, about if that this is a sin and you continue to live in that, then you are like ignoring like God. And essentially that's exactly what Samson was doing. And it came back to, of course, bite him in the end. But another thing that really stood out to me about this story was how Samson was like get your lick back, basically, like in in terms of today type of person. And every time he was doing that, it would always come back on him. And we're all, not all, I want to say we're all taught this, but we all have heard someone say, I treat people how they want how they treat me, or, I'm keeping that same energy. I'm giving that energy. And I look at Samson's story and I'm like, look where it got him when he gave people the same energy that they gave him, or he tried to repay it back with worse. It just led to more chaos. It just led to more disruption. And ultimately, it's what ended him and his fate. Um, but I think the important distinction here, and the one thing that stands out to me the most, is knowing that you are in sin and continuing to walk and live in that sin. That's crazy to me. Now, this is not to say that we do not fall short and we do not make mistakes, because me personally, I can speak to that as someone who started understanding more about sin and just kept falling short, like, especially when it came to fornication, like, and now I'm removed from that, especially when it came to drunkenness. Now I'm removed from that. But it did take some time, right? It did take me coming out of it and repenting and understanding that these have consequences, you know what I mean? Like, so um, unfortunately for Samson, that did not happen for him, right? And it ended in his fate, like, Delilah cutting off his hair and him dying. Um, but it really, for some reason, like, I don't know why, but I felt a little sad at the end to see how Samson went. And it just speaks to, I think I shared a sentiment with that because it speaks to knowing the people around you who are living in sin and continuing to live in that sin, and they don't see anything wrong with it. And I've seen a post and it said, if God came back today and you were in that sin, you're going to hell, like, and that to me is just a scary place to be, to to live life on the edge because you don't know the time nor the hour, right? We don't know the time or the hour when he's coming back. So it's like, why not do the right thing? Why not try to do things the right way? But then I also know those who have strayed away, those who don't follow God, those who are just like, you know what, that don't apply to me. I understand that side too, but it is a sad thing to see. And I think that's why at the end, seeing Samson's fate, that kind of, you know, it really just sat with me and it made me feel like a little bit of sympathy, like, dang, this is really the path and the route that he chose. But I share all of this because, like I said, it just really stuck out to me. And I don't know who this message is for. If you are someone who is living in sin and you have been like contemplating, like, maybe I need to make the change. This isn't to say that you won't fall short. This isn't to say that you will be perfect, but you have to try. You have to literally get tired of your own stuff and try while you still have time. God is so patient with us. It doesn't make any sense how patient he is with us and how he tries to give us time to turn away from our sin and come back to him. He was patient with Samson. Samson knew what was right, but it ended up, ending in his fate. And, you know, if we don't do the right things, if we don't walk in that path, eventually that's what'll happen if we continue to be slaves to our sins while we are here on earth. So I don't know who this message is for, why it stuck out to me today, but I'm glad that it did because it also, for me, is just confirmation that I am walking along the path that God has aligned for me. It's also confirmation to, stay sober. It's also confirmation to stay on the path of, righteousness essentially and just continue doing the things that I have the conviction over. I had a small conviction about something that I had some wine glasses from somebody that I used to date, and I was giving away some wine glasses and stuff. And I just had the conviction to give away these wine glasses, even though I love them. But I don't drink wine anymore. So it's like, what's the point of me having them? And I don't ever use them. I don't even like using glassware. But I just listened. I was like, you know what? I'm giving it away, God. I'm giving it away. And I did. So that's what has happened with me and my convictions and how things have been lining up and shaping up for me. And so I don't know what that looks like for you, but do know that God is patient and he's just waiting for you to turn away from your sin and walk along that path of righteousness. However, you do not want to be like Samson, who literally met his fate and, he didn't really turn it around. Um, but yeah, all in all, that is the message of the day, is simply to ag- acknowledge the sin and walk away from it, because you never know when that day is that it's going to be your day when it's time. And so sorry that this message is so serious, but it's the real. This is the real. But that's all that I have to say for today. I hope today is amazing to y'all, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye bye.